My name is William Muse. My last name is spelled M-U-S-E. I'm a detective on the Tacoma Police Department, and I'm one of the 2 public information officers. I want to thank you all for coming today. This is a really significant event in our city's history, and it really matters a lot to us that you're willing to help us put as much coverage on this case as possible to help us get a person who's now at large into custody. For the purposes of this this conference, we will not be identifying the victim by her name. We are going to refer to her as Jane throughout the duration of this this press conference. We want to protect her privacy. She is obviously concerned for her safety, as the alleged suspect is still not in custody, and so we want to make sure that she feels safe. Along these same lines, she has been supported by family and friends throughout this process. They may be here at some point in time to help her get through this conference, talking about probably the worst thing that's ever happened to her in her life. We humbly request that if you happen to capture any images or videos of the family, that you not publish them. They too are concerned about their safety, again, as the suspect remains at large. Jane will not be taking any questions today. We will be deferring to Tacoma Police Detective Jennifer Quilio. Quilio is spelled Q-U-I-L-I-O. However, Jane has prepared a statement that she'd like to read to you today that recounts her everything that she went through that day. In your coverage, if you could, we ask that you put out a note to the public that as Jane is willing to have her face shown today in order to talk with you, there might be people who recognize her from your coverage and may try to identify her or make references to her identity on social media. So if you could put out a note, if it's possible, to make sure that people do not comment on your pages or whatnot with her with anything that identifies her, she would greatly appreciate it, and so would the family. As I mentioned, Detective Quilio is going to be answering any questions afterwards, but again, the integrity of the case is paramount. So some of the questions that you ask, we may not be able to answer at this particular point in time, but we'll do our best to answer any questions that you do have. So with that, I want to do a couple of acknowledgments. I want to thank the media staff for being here today to put this story out here. I want to thank Jane for summoning up the courage enough to be able to come here before you to talk with you about this harrowing experience. I'd like to thank her family and friends as well, who have supported her through this process. These last 2 weeks have been just incredibly difficult on her, but still, she's here, willing to talk with you, willing to share her story. Jane hopes that we're able to get this guy in custody, not just for her own case, but as he's out there, and he did this to her unprovoked. There's a possibility that there could be another victim out there that he's either already victimized or may possibly victimize. So that's part of the reason why she's here today doing what she's doing. Want to thank the detectives and patrol officers who responded and their hard, diligent work, the crime scene technicians that helped us put this case together to this point. We want to also thank the members of the community out here who have sent tips in, helping us to track down any leads that would help us identify who the suspect is in this case. We want to thank Metro Parks for their cooperation with us since this incident has happened, and doing what they can to partner with us to help make sure that the park remains safe. I also want to thank the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, whose detective was actually able to put together the sketch that we use and put out to the public. With that being said, I'd like to introduce you to Jane.
Good to start whenever? Right. I'm Detective Quilio, and if we're ready, she'll get started.
Great. Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak to you all and share my statement. Saturday, February 10th started as a beautiful day, the type of day that I enjoy walking out at Point Defiance Park. I've often walked these trails both with friends and by myself, and on this day the park was full of visitors. As I walked the Blue Trail, a trail I've walked many times before, many people came on and off the path. Some passed me running or walking. I was just strolling slowly. At one point, I'd seen a man come onto the trail, also just walking, and I thought nothing of it. But a short while later, I heard footsteps come up behind me, so I turned around and was surprised to see him 1 foot from my face. I figured I'd somehow been in his way and offered to let him pass me. He smiled, looked me in the eye, and said, "No, I'm good, thanks." He looked like any normal guy. So I just smiled back and replied, "Okay, I guess I'm just walking slowly." And I moved to the other side of the 6-foot wide trail. Once I turned my back to him and took several steps, I heard even faster footsteps and felt the first blow to my head. I immediately started screaming for help, that I was being attacked, as blow after blow struck my head, the back of my neck, and my shoulders. My eyes were clouded by the blood pouring down my face as I tried to fight back and run. I screamed more but didn't hear anyone reply and realized I was all alone in this part of the trail. He then got me to the ground, knocking me partially off the path, where he sat on my legs to prevent me from kicking him and pinned my arms at my side, leaving my only range of motion in my head and my neck and from my elbows to my hands. That was when I saw the knife. I begged him to let me go, that I could give him money, that I would give him anything he wanted if I could live. That was when he made it verbally explicit that his intent was to kill me, and he told me to tilt my neck back so he could end my pain. I fought with what I had, biting him once, but also biting the knife at some point. I used my hands to try and shield my face and neck from the knife, and at one point he did cut my neck near my carotid artery. And I thank God every day that he missed. I continued screaming that this man was trying to kill me until I finally heard someone yell back, "Is everything all right?" To which I again screamed for help. And a woman and her husband ran up to us, as well as another couple. She told the man to not kill me and tried to get his attention off me, but he turned back to go for my neck again. At this point, she came up and kicked him in the head, where he ran off down the trail. I laid there on the ground while the woman and another bystander cradled my head and face, keeping pressure on my wounds. I couldn't breathe without excruciating pain, and it kept crying out how much I wanted to live, how I didn't want to die out there. The two women kept pressure on my head and my wounds and reassured me that I was not going to die. When EMTs arrived, stabilized me, and rushed me to the ER for surgery. Of the physical injuries, I suffered multiple lacerations and scarring to the hands, neck, and face, some that make it hard to believe that I still have the use of both my eyes and ears. I am recovering from a pneumothorax from a deep stab wound in the shoulder muscle and from being thrown to the ground, but I still struggle with breathing normally. My left arm and side are so much weaker than they were before, and I can't pick anything up without help. My sisters, while cleaning my hair that had been matted with blood and dirt, a process that took 3 days, lost count of the number of staples, but with the multiple skull fractures, I have more than 120 staples in my skull, neck, and upper back. I used to be physically active and social, going outdoors for runs and hikes, going to the gym with my friends to rock climb. Now, sitting up, sleeping, and walking around my house cause me pain, and I feel completely helpless. I know that someday when I fully recover, I will never take my mobility for granted again. Of the emotional injuries, I can't begin to describe the fear that has enveloped my life. It's hard to see media reports and social media comments that state my injuries were non-threatening and that I was stable. Even if technically true, it feels so far from what I experienced. All I could think as I lie on the ground trying to fight him off was, this can't be how I die. There's so much I still haven't done. I had no doubt that I was about to die out there, and I just kept thinking of all my loved ones that I would never see again. I was one wrong move from being killed. I was completely alone, and I still can't believe that I survived. I can't believe I've been able to see my friends and family again these past few weeks and that they aren't actively planning my funeral right now. My mental health feels anything but stable. I've always been a trusting person, but now anytime I see a man walking alone, even if I'm safe inside my house, I freeze. I can't stand the sound of footsteps behind me, even if I know who it is. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder. That's if I even leave my house, which at this point I've only done for medical appointments, and even then I'm still terrified. I can't even be alone in my house anymore. Where I once enjoyed my independence and peaceful solitude, I now need constant company and distractions to the point where I can't fall asleep without the TV on and another person sleeping in the guest room. I still love the city of Tacoma and the beauty of its parks, especially Point Defiance. And until this week, I've never not felt safe out there. But the lack of security at Point Defiance and the fact that the park was still open the next day to the public when he was still out there is shocking to me. I know that now security cameras have been installed, which I'm incredibly grateful for, but it feels like that should have been the bare minimum. Sadly, it's going to be a while before I feel comfortable enough to return. And even then, I won't do so without a group of friends around me, and I'll still be looking over my shoulder. I'd like to thank the detectives working with the Tacoma Police Department and the Pierce County Sheriff's Office on this case. When I first described in detail my attack, they were incredibly sympathetic and swore that this was their top priority. Their constant contact that they've kept with me and my loved ones throughout this process has been hugely helpful and has put my mind at ease, always keeping me in the loop as to the progress of the investigation. Their concern for my well-being and safety has been more than I could have ever expected, and I thank them for giving me the opportunity to speak today. And to my fellow Tacomans, I'd like to say that our city is only as safe as we make it. And if you see someone in danger, please do what you can to help them. Any action could make the difference between life and death. I wouldn't be alive to talk to you if the two couples who came to my aid had just dismissed my cries for help. The woman who came to my rescue and kicked the man in the head saw he had a knife, knew it was risky, and still intervened. Later, she told me that she would kick 100 guys in the head to save my life. I'm pleading with everyone to be aware of your surroundings. I didn't have any earbuds in or my phone out. I could hear him approaching, and I still didn't have time to react. If you continue to walk in these parks, please do so with a friend. And finally, please, anyone that has any information on the man, or if you may have seen him, I'm imploring you to come forward and help with catching him. Thank you.
Detective Quilio.
I will be able to attempt to field any questions. As you can see, Jane was able to provide the details that she was comfortable with at this time. Our investigative team is here, and the integrity of the investigation is paramount for us. Please remember and recognize that we have to keep the outcome in mind as well. And with that, are there any questions? Yes?
Was the weapon recovered at all, and did you guys get any evidence off of that?
A weapon has not been recovered at this time. Yes?
Do you guys know this guy? Like, when you see that sketch, do you see someone that's recognizable?
I would characterize this sketch as incredibly detailed, an excellent work product from Detective Jake Lawrence with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department. Releasing the sketch has provided numerous leads for us to follow. We have a variety of people whose names have been provided to us, and we are actively researching those people to identify and potentially eliminate them. But one of the purposes of today was to continue to ask the public to come forward with pieces of information based on that sketch and anything else they may have seen and heard that day. But the sketch has been a very valuable tool for us.
Thank you for stating. Okay.
Thank you for saying that.
Do you believe this person may be linked or is connected to any other instances in the vicinity or in the time frame?
We don't have any direct information on that at this time. We certainly are aware of any instances that resemble that. We've gone back in the past and looked at prior cases, but at this time, we are not aware of a link.
I was there the night of the incident and was told by Metro Park that they did not evacuate the park because of a decision made with Tacoma Police. Can you weigh in on why the park wasn't evacuated and why
can certainly try, although I may not have the best answer for that question. I do appreciate it. I am also one who was learning of these things after the fact, and it appears as though there was some communication between the police department, the parks department, and some question as to who was able to make that decision. The decision was made to close the park that afternoon, but how that came about and who ultimately whose decision it was, I don't have that information. Thank you.
Can you kind of go through the suspect description as you know it right now?
Yes, I can. At this time, we were looking for a black male, late 20s, perhaps to his early 30s, mid 20s to early 30s, approximately 5'9" to over 6 feet in height, very clean in appearance, with respect to not appearing to be transient in nature. He was wearing a black hooded sweatshirt. He was wearing black pants of a slim cut. He was wearing black shoes of an athletic nature. He has a distinctive hair in his appearance, in a afro style hair that sticks out from his head in the neighborhood of 3 to 6 inches. He may have had some facial hair in a clean cut or shaped mustache, goatee, something of that nature, and has been described as somebody who was I'm sorry. That's about the best we have at this point. The sketch that we put out has been confirmed by Jane, as well as an additional witness, to be incredibly accurate in their recollection of his appearance.
What do you say to Tacomans who don't feel safe in the park when the city Jane herself said don't go out by yourself, be with someone, be with a group of people? What do you say to the residents who don't feel safe here?
That's an interesting dilemma that it presents. Point Defiance is a staple of our community. It's an incredibly large park with so many things to contribute to our community, with the zoo and everything that's contained in there. It is the heart of our community. I will suggest to you that there are times when I'm even astounded at people that I do see walking alone with headphones and things of that nature in a personal safety type situation. But there's also an element to this that we rise above it. And we come together as a community to preserve those things that are integral to our society and our community. And so I think that probably plays into a decision on whether or not to close the park or not. Yeah. Yes?
Can you just, talk to, has Tacoma PD ever seen something like this? Just a completely random, just vicious attack with expressed intent like that? I mean, it's like kind of piggybacking off that. What do you say to people who get that?
I have been with Tacoma Police Department for 28 years, and this isn't the first time I've seen random acts of violence in this city. It's a shame. Our agency is committed to ending violence, but we can't be alone in that. Yes?
In the park, is there any cameras or surveillance? Is there any other ways? Did anyone else see anything? Is there anything more that we can put out there?
Thank you for asking that. We have done extensive canvassing for video evidence, video surveillance. Jane mentioned a camera situation with the park. Metro Parks does actually position cameras within the park. However, it is not uncommon and was not unusual or in any way related that they are housed over the winter when the use of the park is decreased, and then they were replaced after the incident. But that the security and safety of the park is absolutely of utmost paramount importance to Metro Parks as well. And we are exploring all of those options, but unfortunately, the dedicated Metro Park cameras were not in place that day.
When Jane was talking, she was saying there's other folks on the trail. Did anybody see anything? This guy took all these two good Samaritans, come in and knocked this guy in the head, and presumably he takes off somewhere. Did anyone else see anything? Did it go any direction?
We have identified numerous witnesses who have also been integral to this investigation and are fully cooperating. As we've solicited the public for information and as we stand here today, the purpose of that is because we are well aware that there were 2,000 people in the park that day, and we need more people to come forward because people saw him but may not have recognized what they were seeing, which is why we want the description out. But yes, the people that assisted Jane have been working incredibly closely with us and are very supportive and helpful to the investigation, and they came forward and identified themselves immediately.
We've heard this is clearly such a significant event in the city's history. What would bring justice in this case? And can you express again just how important it is for the public to look at the sketch and get involved and help bring this person to justice? I mean, you guys have already released a sketch, a suspect description, but still more needs to be done.
We think that the risk is incredibly real, that the person who did this would do it again if the opportunity presented itself or if he sought that out. We feel that there is a significant risk to the public at this time while this person is outstanding, and the resolution that we are looking for is successful arrest and prosecution and an apology.
Point Defiance is a big park. Do you guys have any idea which direction he ran after, so maybe we can get the word out if you were in this part of Point Defiance at this time? Did you see this person run by?
Yes, actually we do. As you said, the park is incredibly large, I believe 176 acres with a very vast trail system. We are aware of his direction of travel and his last known location. However, having said that, once somebody disappears into the wooded area, it becomes incredibly difficult. But we are focusing our attention on the information that we have put out with specific reference to the Owen Beach area. The trail itself happened to be at a convergence of both the dark blue line, the light blue line, and the yellow line of Spine Trail is the blue line. But those trails go a lot of different directions. So this occurred in an area near 5 Mile Drive on the blue line at the end of the Owen Beach parking area. And we do know that the suspect was last seen heading back toward the Owen Beach parking area. And then he was lost sight of.
Do you guys have extra officers in the park now and since the day?
Yes, we do. That is certainly not something that I orchestrate or have any part in, but I am aware of emphasis patrols in the area, both in vehicles as well as a 4-member bicycle team.
What kind of staffing do you have? How many is this everyone working on the case? How many people are focused on this incident?
Our unit is called the Aggravated Assaults Unit. We are sort of a little umbrella team within the homicide unit at our agency here. There are 5 of us and a supervisor. We are all here today with the exception of one who is working on something. Our supervisor is here. And while our responsibility is to investigate every aggravated assault that occurs in the city of Tacoma that doesn't result in death, we have done nothing but this case for the last 9 days.
Tell us your name again.
Detective Jennifer Quilio, Quilio, 1L.
Jennifer, you said?
Yes,
Thank you.
common spelling.
Detective?
Detective.
When you said 5 people and a supervisor, is that 5 detectives?
5 detectives and a sergeant, correct. Anything else? This is not my comfort zone.
Any message for the 2 witnesses who stepped in?
They were unbelievably outstanding, not only in interrupting the attack, but in comforting her and rendering medical aid. One of them is a medical professional, and there were some significant life-saving measures taking place prior to police arrival. When the officers were able to get to Jane, we were able to bring in our trauma kits and additional medical supplies to assist them. But the aid that they were able to provide her in those moments may have impacted the outcome for Jane. We are working very closely with them, and they are well aware of our appreciation of their efforts. And they also have assisted us in creating that sketch. And with that, shut it down. Mac?
Again, I want to thank all of you for coming here today. In my list of people that I want to thank, I do also want to thank some of the other first responders, Tacoma Fire Department, who also responded to the scene to help Jane, and the trauma team that helped take care of her when she was admitted to the hospital. For lack of a better term, this is probably going to be the end of the press conference at this particular point in time. However, I do have a brief slideshow that consists of photographs that Jane has given her consent for you to view. We will make these photographs available to you to use as you need. But the slideshow will consist of the Crime Stoppers bulletins and then some of the injuries that Jane received. Her concern was, if I may, is that although you look at her and she is healing, the injuries were much worse at the time. And she wanted to make sure that those images that were captured by our crime scene technicians truly reflect what she went through in those moments where she thought that she didn't have very many moments left on this earth. So thank you all. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.